Om Shanti. Good morning. One of the most profound experiences that I've had in my Brahmin life was just after the opening of the Global Retreat Centre in Oxford, and a small group of souls that had been in Gyan for many years. We spent 8 days, there were 8 of us. We had an 8-day retreat. Even one of the participants was Sister Genti. I don't think before or after that she's had 8 days just to herself. And what we did was take up the course, the basic introductory course. And each one of us were given a day to do one of the topics with the others, to lead the topic in a sense, because it was just 8 of us sitting in a circle. And as we plumbed into the depths of Gyan, our basic Gyan, we came to the rather obvious conclusion that in general our appreciation of the depth of Gyan is not so good. All of us were convinced that we needed to really go into greater depths. And perhaps the overall experience was that we needed to understand basically one thing in everything that we're doing, that is to learn how to be subtle and spiritual and avyakt while we do our activities. That is the real proof of our spiritual understanding, in a sense. So while we were going into each topic, so you can imagine just dedicating one day to the soul, or one day to God, or one day to the cycle, or one day to the karma. Just one day, it seems not very much. But our appreciation of Gyan increased tremendously. And we know that even this morning someone was asking me, what's the effort that we need to make? And I said, we need to be stable. In fact, every time I've ever asked Daddy, what should I do for the role that I play, and Daddy has always said 2 things. All you have to do is to be stable and to remain pure. Easier said than done, isn't it? We don't need to work out yuktis, in fact, of keeping our stage when things start to get tough, right? And we know that things will get worse. The drama will present tests which are bigger and greater than probably anything we have seen until now. Situations are breaking down all over the place. And for those souls for whom we are responsible, the ones that are in Gyan, or the ones that are not in Gyan, the ones that have had Baba's message, and the ones that haven't had Baba's message yet, we have to remain stable so that all of those souls can get the support they need to receive the inheritance which is applicable to each one. So, if we have a superficial appreciation of Gyan, these points are very interesting, this is a great idea, and we share interesting points with each other, but in fact we don't go into the depths. An example I like to give is that in many countries you've got corrupt governments. In the part of the world where I live, most of the governments are quite corrupt. That means, basically, they've got into power with the support of people whom they're not going to offend ever. Let's say the banks and the private companies come along and they say, okay, we're going to support you in your campaign, but when you get into power, please don't do anything to disturb our little game of raking in the profits. Yeah? That's how it is. So the government stays in there, they do everything around that particular agreement, but they don't do anything to disturb it. In a similar way, we've had a long-standing agreement with Ravan. Many, many births. And Ravan, in fact, has given us a false sense of power, a false sense of superiority. Whenever you get mad at someone, that's Ravan in you, giving you a false sense of superiority. If you look at someone's defects, you think about someone's defects, then that's Ravan giving you a false sense of superiority. Because as you look at other people's defects, you are chanting your own virtues. Oh, I am better than that person, I'm better than that one, and so on. So, who's given us a false sense of power is in fact our own vices. And it takes courage, really, just as it would do for a government to make tough decisions that would go against the agreements with the ones that have put them in power, and maybe the other political parties, in order to do something that is right for the country. Sometimes the decisions have to be very tough. In the same way, to do what is really right for ourselves, we have to be very courageous, and we have to break down the supports which have been false. And they keep us in this false sense of, a very superficial sense of okayness. I'm okay, everything's okay, fine. But in fact, when a big test comes, we see that everything's not okay. Someone that we love or we respect betrays that respect. Something that we've wanted to happen doesn't happen. Somehow or the other, we lose a job, or maybe we get sick when we're not supposed to get sick, and so on and so forth. Something happens that will test and challenge, as Daddy was saying this morning. This is a university, Tests will be of that level, The tests that come are not going to be easy. So I need to have depth in my awareness. I need to have the depth, because if you're thinking about building a stage in the same way that you build a building, if it's going to withstand an earthquake, the structure has to be very strong and at the same time flexible. The foundations have to be very, very, very firm. So building a stage that can, face any sorts of obstacles, any sorts of criticism, any sorts of defamation, any sorts of insult, any sorts of betrayal, any scenes of the drama, in fact. To build such a stage, we need to have depth. We need to understand things deeply. We need to work on our basic awareness, in a sense. Now, if we define awareness as what we believe ourselves to be at any given moment, then it becomes easier to understand. Now, who am I really? That's what awareness is. What am I supposed to be doing? That's what awareness is. Now, if you look at your strengths and look at the things that hold you back, look at the ways you actually sabotage yourself sometimes. There's a part of us wanting to move forward and there's a part of us keeping us back. So what happens if you try to move forward and back at the same time? You probably feel a little bit stopped or stuck. Now these are the challenges that we have to face, all of us. Oh, I want to ask a question that you can share with the person next to you, the answer, just to make it a little bit more interactive here. What do you really believe about yourself and about your future, really? What do you believe that you're capable of doing, really? Think about it. Because that's where awareness lies. Awareness lies in our belief about ourselves and about what's happening to us. Where will you go with what you have? And then you'll see that the answers are not, they can't be just superficial ones. You've taken the Morley and just thought about it at this level, and it's coming out of your mouth. But what do you really believe about your future and about yourself? I want you to share with each other. Find someone that speaks your language nearby. Share. What do you really believe that you're capable of in the future? If everything you have works, if every point of gyan that you understand works, share. Find someone that speaks your language. If you're sitting alone, sit near somebody. Engage in a conversation with someone. What could you be? I'll give you 2 more minutes. Okay, let's wind up. Last comments. You see, okay? Good conversation? Yeah? But these are the sorts of questions we need to ask ourselves. Because belief, I think, is it has to be based on understanding, first of all, and has to be based on deep understanding. Do I really believe that I am God's instrument to transform this world? Do I really believe that I will become karmatit? I will sort out my karmic story? Do I really believe that I will leave the body smiling? In English there's an expression that says everyone wants to go to heaven but no one wants to die. I think it's part of the condition. I mean, do you really believe that you'll be a deity? Really? Can you see yourself? I admit I don't see myself dressed like that. But I can certainly relate to the innocence and the purity and the way that we interact, in a subtle way, an intuitive understanding of nature, playing with the elements, the arts and the beauty and the music. I'm looking at Denzel in front of me. Can you see yourself in that music and that art and that dance and that beauty? Yes. I need to position myself in those beliefs. And that is the depth of the awareness that we need, because when you refer back to yourself, that the self-referencing, and I'm going to speak slowly here because I know that there are translators, the way we refer to ourselves during our activities, going from one scene to the other, getting involved with others, how deep does that self-referencing go? Do I refer to myself to the person that was just criticized 10 minutes ago? Do I refer to myself as a person who's got a pain in the back, or a chronic liver problem? Do I refer to myself to the person that's been out of work for the last 6 months? Do I refer to myself as someone who's starting up a center in some little place somewhere and there are no students? Do I refer to myself as someone that has failed in the main tests, maybe in one or two of the principles? Do I refer to myself as someone that has not been constant, and so on? Or do I refer to myself as that original soul that's gone through a whole lot of stuff and has finally come to the understanding of what it is, Baba says the soul is a he. So what he is. What am I? Who am I? So how deep does the referencing go when I refer back to myself in between actions? This is what self-awareness is. There's a story about the Buddha. I think this gentleman here must be from the Buddhist faith, is he? Dressed? Yeah? Okay. You inspire me to give a story. You probably know this one better than I do. But apparently someone was walking on one of the country roads here, and he saw the Buddha sitting, meditating. And he was so impacted by the vibration that he went up to him. He said, "Oh, sir, who are you? Are you a god?" "No." "Are you a magician? I feel so impacted by your incredible vibration. Who are you? Are you a magician?" "No." "So what are you?" And the answer was, "I am aware." It's a very difficult word to translate into many languages, awareness. It's not exactly the same as consciousness. It means to understand what's going on around you and understand who you are in that context, who you really are in that context. So any context for us is the same context. It's a context of service. Any context for us is the same context because I am Baba's instrument. So is that from where I come when I engage in activities with others? So I come out from that stage and do what I have to do, and then after doing it I go back to it? Or I come out from some more superficial state and I go back to that superficial state? "Oh, I'm tired, this happened last, I've done so many things in the last couple of days, don't come to me now, please. There's so many, I've got 10 programs on at the same time, come on." That's very, very superficial. Then of course, if you want to, you can see yourself in the relationships with others. That person, if you get hurt by somebody, it's because you have been engaged at a superficial level in wanting something from that person. That's why you got hurt. I remember Daddy with a group of, she was celebrating her 90th birthday. And she didn't want to do it as a birthday party, she wanted to do it as a service party. So she got the friends there in Oxford together, and there was a dialogue about serving. Serving from the heart was the name of the dialogue. And one of the people asked her, "Daddy, it's really good serving others and so on, but how can you serve someone who has betrayed you? How is it possible? How can you serve someone from your heart? How can you serve somebody who has betrayed you?" And then Daddy gave, for us not so surprising, but for the person, an extremely surprising answer. She said, that person didn't betray you, you betrayed yourself. No one betrays us. We bet on the wrong horses. Right? That's what happens. If someone goes against what we feel, it's because we were betting on the wrong horse, and that horse didn't win the race. If it wins the race, we become so happy. I got the return of what I expected. Oh-ho. But Baba talks about that sort of happiness as being false intoxication. I get the return back of something that I did. You know? And we're so used to that. That's such a deep sanskar, isn't it? But our very deep sanskars are much greater than that. And Baba talked recently about the powers, and he said that the powers of the soul are not just those 8 powers. So if you go into the powers of the soul, you look at the power of the mind, the power of the intellect, the power of the sanskars. That's where the real power is. And even deeper than that, the power of awareness. The power of knowing who you really are and what you're supposed to be doing. And not just knowing it, believing it, being absolutely convinced by it. That there's no room for doubt. There's something that does not change because of circumstances. Now, am I in a space where my self-referencing does not change in spite of the circumstances? In spite of the people around me? In spite of the center that's happening around me? In spite of the people that I'm interacting with on a logic or alokik level? Is there something inside of me that is inalterable? That's what the depth of, that's where the roots of awareness come from. I am that, it does not change because of the time of the day or because I work 16 hours today and only 8 hours yesterday. It does not change if I sleep 3 hours or 10, you know. And there's no one here that sleeps 10 hours, I'm sure. But last night I slept 3 hours and I'm feeling pretty okay. So that sense of self that does not change with circumstances. That's what we have to build. We don't have to worry about being stable if we're building that sort of sense of self. Now, to shore it up, to make it stronger, the depth of the mind, for example, the power of the mind. What does the mind do? It thinks basically 2 things. There are others, but the 2 main things that the mind does are thinking and desiring. So what do we have to do with our thoughts to make them strong? We have to have them focused, and we have to train to focus them. As soon as they start to go all over the place, we should come back. And it's training. Before we concentrate, we have to center ourselves. You cannot concentrate something that is not centered. That's why the steps are absolutely necessary. I come to the center of my awareness. I am in the center of the things that are going on around me. The whole world is happening, but I'm in the center of it all. I'm the detached observer. Then we can start to concentrate its power. But if we can't center, we can't concentrate either. So, come to the center has a different meaning. Right? We invite others to come to our center. We should invite ourselves to come to our own center. Is that right? So the whole thing, all the people, other actors are so completely worlds apart, literally. Every single other soul is not in here with me. So why, Baba said we should have a head population of 2. Me and Baba. Not even a third one. So what's the population of your head? This one and that one and the other one and, Brahmins and Lokiks and colleagues at work and Baba in between somewhere? No. So I come to the center and all of these things are around me. They depend on my stage. The things around me depend on my stage. If things are not working out, it's because my stage is not so okay. So my self-referencing has to tell me that every time, so that I can make the adjustments. I'm off center. That's why things are going wrong. I'm out of sync. I'm not in the right place. So how can I see things? How can I have a correct perspective on things if I'm not sitting on the right seat, as Daddy was saying this morning also? Sitting on the seat, the real seat of the soul. And just looking, it's such a clean seat that Baba's given us. It's such an elevated seat, as Daddy was saying also. And from that elevated and clean seat, we can see many things that we wouldn't be able to see if we were off it. So I need to check where I'm sitting and where I'm seeing things from. We have a habit of being stuck in our own history, being stuck in our own story, so that we judge events as a sort of a next chapter in our own story. This is a new scene in my book. This is happening now. So we carry our story around with us, and we see things from the perspective of that story. But that story is only a recent one. Yeah? I was born in such and such a place, and I went here and I went there, and then I came into Gyan, and in that center my spiritual mummy was so and so, and then I had a few problems and had a few successes and come to Madhaban a few times, and now here I am again, and this is a new scene in my life. It's a very, very, skin deep, that sort of perception. That's a sort of awareness that cannot hold. It won't be able to face anything. So I have to step back from that, That's a puppet. I've often think about that. Many of us just put BK in the front of the ego. I'm so-and-so, now I'm BK so-and-so. I did this and this, and now I'm a BK doing this and this, There's no difference, essentially. So I have to go deeper than that, into the roots, right? So if I don't, my thoughts will be all over the place. Now, it's much more difficult to control a hose that's jumping all over the place than to control the tap. It's much more sensible to go to the tap and do the controlling there rather than try to catch the hose. So when you sit down to meditate, are you going to the tap, or you're trying to catch the hose? Stop, hose, Calm down, hose. Won't work. If you ever played with a hose, you hold, let's say you bend the hose and hold it, what happens? The pressure builds up, right? Have you ever done that? Playing with a hose, yeah? You bend it, you hold it, and the pressure builds up, and then you open it. So we should go to the tap, and the tap is where thoughts are actually springing from. Thoughts spring from our awareness. So if prevention is easier than the cure in the long run, we have to check our awareness every time. Who am I? What am I supposed to be doing here? How does a child of God see this scene? How does a child of God interact with this one? If I'm Baba's instrument, how are my thoughts supposed to be? So thoughts end up, becoming much more smooth, much less all over the place, and much less confusion, of course. It's interesting that when we become confused, the worst thing that we can do is say, I need some time to think. Because actually you're just inviting more confusion. You need time to think? No, you need to have the right thoughts. Yeah? That's what we even tell in the first lesson of the course. The other thing of the mind is the desire. So we know that the power of desires is very strong. These days they talk about The Secret, right? It's a world bestseller. It's basically about the power of desire. But we know that the secret of the secret of the secret. Yeah? Desires desires come for two reasons. Because there's a lack of fulfillment, an emptiness, the soul tries to fill itself up with things that are around. And of course it can't. Matter, sound, music, drugs, good times, relationships, good conversations, they can't fill the soul. The soul can only be filled with its own true qualities. And only God can bring those qualities up to that level. So the soul can really only be fulfilled through its relationship with the Supreme. And not through others, and not through things. Now that's pretty sad if you think about it. Let's say you're a BK, your relationship with Baba's not the best. But you can't get anything out of things, you can't get anything out of others, and you can't get anything out of yourself. What do? Shoot yourself. We've only got one option. We don't even have two options. Well, the only option we have is to come closer to Baba. There's no other option. Now that we know what we know, we can't go back to the bliss of ignorance. Bliss in inverted commas. So we have to understand and go towards the source. There's no other option. So I have to be interested intensely in what Baba's giving me. If that interest is intense, then I don't need to worry about other desires. I won't have them. They won't come. I need to desire to to get the wealth that Baba's giving me, I need to desire the experience of the relationship with God and so on. These are the, we need to work on those very, very high level desires. We need to desire, for example, that there is success in Baba's task. Not necessarily the success for my part in Baba's task, but desire for the success of the task is absolutely important to make service flow. So if I'm working on those right desires, I don't need to worry about other types of desires. Baba says that, there's no way in the world that something can stop a really pure desire. Nothing can stop a pure desire. So if I really am convinced of that, there are no excuses, right? If I want to be pure, if I want to go ahead, I want to break through all of the things that are holding me back, I want to remove the obstacles, it's the power of a pure desire that will do it. Nothing can withstand the pure desire. Now if we look at the intellect also has basically two aspects. One of them is understanding, of course, and the other one is decision or judgment. It's the intellect that understands, the intellect that engages also with the world. The mind and the desires, the thoughts and the desires are the basis of our sustainability. We sustain ourselves through pure thoughts and desires. And that includes the pure feelings. We are sustained and we sustain others. We sustain the future, in fact. We sustain what is coming up in front of us with the power of those thoughts and feelings and desires. So if the mind is the basis of our own sustainability and the sustainability of the service that we do, the intellect is the the basis of the connection with the world, in a sense, the way we relate. So we relate through understanding and through judgment. We have the clarity about what works and what doesn't work, what's beneficial and what's not beneficial, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. We have that sense, but I need to use it in practice to make it more powerful. And understanding means, it's like an understanding it's like an embrace. When I understand something, I embrace it. The thing that I'm understanding becomes part of me, in a sense. They are both together. So if I've really understood something, it doesn't change back to non-understanding, right? If I've really understood that, I'm this soul, I am this deity soul. I've been through a whole lot of births, and here I am again, getting my inheritance. I understand that it's part of me. That understanding is part of me, and it doesn't change after that. If it's changeable, it's not been understood yet. It's been thought about, it's been entertained, it's been tickling the intellect, interesting, entertaining, but not embraced. So it's absolutely essential, because the mirrors for the soul, when Baba says, look at yourself in the mirror of your own heart, we look at ourselves how? We look at how much we are actually have created such a stage that it's automatically self-sustaining. The other mirror is the relationships that we have with our own body, with matter, and with others, right? And of course with Baba. So the way I connect with others is exactly the way my intellect is working. You know, it's like how I fit myself into things and others and Baba. Am I fitted, or is it like I'm still a bit of a square plug in a round hole? You know, am I a little bit not fitting properly? I don't fit properly with others. You know, I'm a little bit strange, or a little bit weird, or a little bit off. I know a lot of us are a little bit off, right? We don't fit perfectly with other people. We fit perfectly with some and very imperfectly with others. Do you find that? So if we want to be like Daddy Ji, who fit perfectly with absolutely anyone, it's a question of how I engage my intellect, how I understand. Wisdom is in the quickness of the adjustment. Wisdom is in the quickness of the adjustment. Something happens and I can automatically adjust myself to that new circumstance. That's the power of the intellect. I made the adjustment so that I can fit in to that particular scene. The scene that's happening, it isn't the scene that was on my plan. In fact, what is a test except a scene that was not planned? Is that right? A test is a scene that was not in the plan. And if I insist on my own plan, right, when that plan is not happening, then I've failed. So, the scene is there, my plan is there, the quickness that I can put the plan behind me and adjust and fit into the new scene is the depth of my understanding or wisdom. And of course, now we can think about that. How quickly can we adjust to going beyond? Om Shanti. So I was saying that wisdom is not only in the quickness of our adjustment or response to a new scene, but it's also in the quickness in which we can go beyond in a second. How long it takes us to go beyond when we need to and come back when we need to. So the depth of the mind, depth of thought is being able to focus easily. The depth of desire is the feeling of belonging to Baba and the fulfillment that comes from that. The depth of understanding is, in a sense, how to balance ourselves out in all situations. So the depth of the sanskars, of course, if we look at it, sanskars are our inner processes. So if the mind is responsible for sustaining ourselves, our efforts and others, our intellects are responsible for the way we relate to others and interact with others. The sanskars are our inner processes. And so what is the depth of, let's say, memory? Memories are, after all, sanskars. So where do our memories go back to? How deep are our memories? Baba says, invoke your deepest and most original memories. Our deepest memories are our connection with God, right? Our connection with Baba in the soul world. There's that sanskar is there. And then we have the deeper memories of the golden age. They are there. So if my memories are that deep, that's how stable I'll be. Memories of yesterday, memories of 2 hours ago, memories of a program that happened last month are not particularly deep memories, and therefore are unstable. Undeep and unstable are pretty much synonyms in a sense. So what are the memories that circulate in my mind? Some words that someone said recently, something that someone did, or even the class that I heard last week, you know. Am I entertaining? Do I have a conversation with myself about Gyan, just purely as an exercise of keeping the mind busy? Or am I really engaged in a conversation with myself about it? Or in other words, do I talk with myself about Gyan? Or do I talk with Gyan about myself? It's a difference. Big difference. Is my recent history the judge of everything? Or is my whole history the judge of everything? This a big difference. So where do my memories go back to? Now the sorts of processes that my sanskars move me in, are they healthy enough? You know, some of the Baba talks about, even this year, in the beginning of the year, in the National Coordinators Retreat, we asked Daddy about what are our major challenges. She really didn't understand what a challenge was. For someone for whom everything's easy, the word challenge is not even in the dictionary, right? But then we changed the question a little bit. We asked her about the golden chains, the sorts of things that we've developed, the sorts of practices that we've developed after coming to Baba. Even jnani practices which are not so, great. So the habits for Amrit Vela, for example, the habits for Murli, the way we take notes, the way we absorb the Murli, the way we engage ourselves in the muli. All of these are sanskars. The way we do things are sanskars. The way we do things. So, is the way I do things helping me or making things difficult for me? Even though I have the Gyan, even though I have Baba, does the way I do things help or hinder me? So the sanskars are the way we do things. The intellect is the way we engage in things. And the mind is the way we sustain things. So sustaining, engaging and doing, these things have to be moving in the same direction. Baba talks about the mirror, but how clean is it really? So a clean mirror is a deep mirror. So other people cannot be my mirrors, even though, there's absolutely no profit in comparing ourselves with others. And if the mirror is not clean enough, we won't be able to see God in it anyway. So I have to look at the way I do things, the way I engage in things, the way I sustain things. These are the more present and easy mirrors to look at. We learn much more about the way we do these things, the way we react to things, than we do about just listening to the muli. That's the raw material. But what am I doing with that raw material is my reality. Right? What am I building with that construction material? Look at the building. Will the building stay standing? Is it sufficient enough? Sometimes it just falls down in a very stupid situation comes up and the whole building falls down. At least, do I have a stage that can't stand a stupid situation? So I have to see, what am I doing with what I'm getting? Baba's giving so much, but what's coming up out of it? What's the result really? That's what awareness is. Awareness is not just being self-centered and I'm okay, but it's being aware of what's going on around at the same time. It's a state of inner and outer perception that's balanced. And that's what awareness is. I'm okay, but no one's coming to the center, out of work. Everyone doesn't appreciate how intelligent I am, Baba says we have to look around us because there's several certificates that we have to get, right? Not just our own certificate. So I want to ask you if that's okay, if you've got any questions, we can dedicate maybe 15 minutes to going deeper into this topic. Do we have another microphone? Let's stick a mic at the edge of the stage maybe. Questions? This sister's got a question? She needs a translator. Okay. I can speak a few languages, but not Russian. Bhaiji, put the mic on the front of the stage so that they don't get them to come up on the stage. They'll have stage fright. Okay. Put it down below, Bhai. Yeah. We need a translation up here on stage. Someone who can translate from Russian into English. Possible? Who can do it?
Вот где-то граница у человека, у души.
This way.
Нет. А может быть кто-нибудь...
Has to be a simple question
Что?
with a simple translation. Wait. Ah. Okay.
Ну, хорошо.
No, it's okay. No. Ah.
Хорошо. Значит, у меня такой вопрос. Вот...
Еще поставьте, чтобы у меня микрофон.
Сейчас.
Short question.
Да, у меня такой вопрос. Вот где граница между вот этой полной адекватностью, то, что вы говорите, самосознание, с сознанием Бога, да, и с самой иллюзией вот того, что самооправданием себя, когда человек думает, что это действительно он думает так, как говорит Бог.
I'll try to translate. What is the limit between the...
What's the difference?
What is the difference, between the awareness, the true awareness of yourself and God, and the illusions, what you create about, and so when you when you try to see better about yourself as it is, I forgot this word.
What's the difference between true awareness and illusions?
And delusion, what you create.
Okay. I always like to remember that one of the Sister Sudesh once explained what Maya is from the Sanskrit root ma and ya. Ya means that. Ma is not that. So Maya means not that. Now in the Indian philosophy, that sometimes is referred to as God, that or that one. So Maya is not that, everything which is not that. So we have Baba and Baba's world, and the things that we need to bring out of Baba's world and put it into our world. And we have Maya's world, and the things that Maya's world tries to take out of us and put into her world. So we have to change the worlds, basically. So I have to understand that this is the world that I need to work with, Baba's world, and this is the world that I need to stop working with. So I work with Baba's world, or Maya's world works with me. You can't, and we oscillate, right? So I'm taking from Baba's world and I'm putting into my life, or Maya's taking from my life and putting into her world. And so we need to balance those two realities, because they are realities. One is an illusory reality and the other one is the real one. Now, how do you know the difference? You know the difference because you'll feel extremely happy, extremely fulfilled, and you'll see things working very smoothly if you're able to take from Baba's world and put into your life. Things will feel right. Things will feel true. and you'll feel very light about everything. Now, if Maya is still working with you, you'll feel the struggle. Even though we're on a battlefield, it doesn't mean that we have to be battling, as Daddy said the other day. If there's a struggle, there's probably Maya. Maya, in fact, is also the awareness of what we think is right and is not. What we think is true and is not true. Yeah? So there's the absolute and the relative. If we make an opinion as a fact, that's putting Maya into the question. If you have a difficulty with somebody, for example, you will always find that it's a difficulty between opinions. But if it's really true, there's no difference. How can you, if I'm true, there's no fight, basically. So then you know the difference. The signs are there. Baba says the signals of such souls are these and these and these and these. There's a whole list to see if you're on the true track or on the false one. So Baba is the one. Everything else is not that. Yeah? Maya. Anything else? Use the mic. I can't hear.
Just based on what you just said about working, taking from Baba's world, and the other side was Maya working in my world. I was trying to think that it wasn't the same.
No. I take from Baba and put into my life, or Maya takes from my life and puts into her world.
How is that different from me taking from Maya's world?
No, it means from my life, Maya's world becomes stronger at the cost of my peace, my love, my happiness.
Okay, thank you.
My life becomes stronger by bringing those things out of Baba. But then Maya takes them away and makes her world stronger. For example, I start to create problems at the cost of my peace, love and happiness. All of us are extremely creative. Look at the problems we make. Yeah? Okay. Last question, then we can have some powerful meditation.
Implementation.
Huh?
Implementation. How to imply all the gyan, all the knowledge. And you said that it's not just we, also the environment. And we have not make them to fit us, but we have to fit to them. It's like the ball and the square. Actually, how do we do it? How do we do it without losing the depth, not being superficial, all this kind of thing? Thank you.
For me, the very best of practical orientations that Baba's given us is to consider every single situation as an opportunity for serving, and to see every single individual as someone who is one of God's customers. And therefore I have to be Baba's instrument to give something to that person or to the situation. That's all I have to do. It's not a question of making a whole plan about I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and so on. But wherever I go, everything needs to be served. So I just have to adjust myself into a serving mode and to a giving mode. Then I don't need to worry about anything else. So if I'm giving at that moment, I'm not receiving, right? If I'm giving out or I'm an instrument to give peace, I'm not going to be affected by peacelessness around me. If I'm understanding, let's say, serving someone is to be an instrument to perceive what that soul really needs, which may not be what the soul thinks that it needs, right? I don't know, but if I'm Baba's instrument, he knows what this person in front of me needs. And therefore, I just to finish with a small story. There was a sister in the beginning of service in Australia. And in those days we used to give drishti 1-to-1. And then afterwards, when we were giving courses, Baba said, no, you have to wait until at least there are 5 around to give drishti to a group of souls, and not sit there and give drishti to one person, because it was creating problems, right? Anyway, it was still in the days when that was permitted. This was in the 70s. And this sister's, afterwards she told me that she's giving drishti, and she knew the person who was sitting in front of her, right? And she knew that that person was going through lots of difficulties and having, all sorts of headaches with the husband and so on. And so in the meditation she said to me, I concentrated on Baba, and I said to Baba, Baba, really give this soul an extra dose of power, because she really needs it. And immediately the teacher, she told me later, she got a touching from Baba and said, child, don't you think I know what this one needs? Don't tell me what I have to do. You see, Baba knows that I just have to be in that giving mode, and there's no, make a big plan of how to implement all of this. Not necessary. Everyone is God's customer, and I'm his salesman. Okay? That's it. Okay, Om Shanti.